One release date, two terrible albums. Imagine Dragons and Camila Cabello both put out new records on Friday, June 28th, 2024, and both have a myriad of issues that I want to dive into, but I didn't want to do videos for both, so we're gonna go head to head instead. Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and this is a very special installment of Pop Gone Wrong, Imagine Dragons vs. Camila Cabello edition. Curse my morbid curiosity, because these two records are more than just a slog to get through. They're mainstream excursions that literally have no artistic redemption. It feels like an assembled product in the case of both of these. Instead of exploring both of these records on their own, which they really don't need or deserve, I wanted to go head to head and test these records on 5 categories to figure out which one is worse. First up though, a little bit of background context for both of the albums. Imagine Dragons, currently down a drummer who's been on hiatus from the band since early 2023, have put out their 6th album, LOOM, which feels like a looming fart that's just hanging in the air. You can't get the taste out of your mouth. This is the shortest Imagine Dragons album to date, with just 9 tracks, 10 if you count the Eyes Closed remix with J Balvin. But fortunately, this is a positive that I can say it shares with XOXO, the common denominator being that neither of them are more than about a half hour. XOXO is the latest solo offering from Camila Cabello, formerly of the girl band Fifth Harmony. She claims to have been working on this 32-minute record for about 3 years, which I'm calling bullshit. If this is 3 years worth of work, then I've never worked a day in my life. The quality of the lyrics, or the lack thereof, will be our first category, starting with Imagine Dragons. This album features some atrocious tracks, some of the worst that I've ever heard from the Dragons, and they've bounced back a bit over the years, with Evolve probably being their lowest point in 2017. Suffice it to say, if you were never a fan of this group, this is not the album that's gonna win you over, with tracks like Take Me to the Beach playing out like a throbbing, pounding headache.
You can have the mountain. I'll take the beach.
Gods Don't Pray is so full of itself, it can't decide whether it wants to sell you a Ford heavy-duty truck or be the next anthem for your Instagram story where you're not actually doing anything cool.
Save it for somebody that cares. Gods don't pray. Gods don't pray.
Frontman Dan Reynolds has been through some major life changes that I think would probably be interesting if he could actually get out of his own way to write about it for once.
I could do this with my eyes closed. Turn up the light.
He's been through a divorce, he left his religion, the church is in the rear view, he's got kids, there's a lot of stuff to play with. But no, instead, how about another plastic-sounding anthem for the gym? On Camila's side of the coin, I can't entirely fault her, because holy mother of God, look at the amount of writers on some of these tracks. Now granted, some of that is of course for the sampling, songs that just flat out don't work. They try to have a much edgier vibe, and clearly Camila is trying to show us that she's not the young girl that she used to be, and she's no longer dating the cardboard box that is Shawn Mendes's music.
Slow down, baby.
Oh, you're running. Oh, you grown.
With the out-of-place auto-tune at random moments, in lyrical quips that just feel brain-dead or else borrowed or stolen from literally everybody else, this album doesn't feel like it has an original or genuine sincere thought in sight. So for this round, I'm gonna have to give the lyrics to Imagine Dragons. Category 2 is composition. It takes a certain skill to put a song together that's satisfying. And while the songs on either of these albums might scratch a certain itch, it's kinda like a sugar high in the sense that you're gonna come down and feel terrible afterwards. At this point, it feels like the Dragons are just taking pieces of their past records and gluing them together, and instead of investing in some solid glue, they're just using the Dollar Tree stuff. Watery-ass guitars might make you feel like you took a stool softener. The bass is barely audible a lot of the time. The production and bombast is dialed up to 11 as per usual, with some genuine emotion buried underneath the waves. It's just that they keep building on top of this shit sandcastle. Occasionally, there's a glimmer of hope. In Your Corner is not a bad song, although it leaves a lot to be desired, especially if we're looking at it in the context of, hey, I was there for you, you said I wasn't, and this is how our divorce went down. It just is so generic, it barely scratches the surface and leaves me hungry for more. For Camila, it's clear that she wanted a certain aesthetic, and that meant gathering up artists that have a lot of hype behind them, or else ones that are seen as different and something a little bit edgier, because in the past, while I've enjoyed a little bit of Camila's work, I would have never described it as edgy. I will credit Camila with one thing that I genuinely do think took some balls, if you want to call it that. She has not just one, but 2 Drake features on her album after Drake was decimated in the Kendrick Lamar beef. That's just, it's embarrassing, but the kahunas to stand by the features and not scrap them? Come on, girl. The shit stain that is I Love It featuring Playboi Carti is a prime example of how compositionally this album is just a smorgasbord of fucked. Breathy, annoying vocals, bizarro samples spinning in the background. The structure of XOXO is inherently flawed, and the pretentious-ass interludes don't do it any favors. I do think compositionally, I'll give the edge to Camila over Imagine Dragons because they worked with their longtime producers, Mattman and Robin, to do the entire record. It feels so one-noted. And if I could say anything for XOXO, it doesn't stay on the same page the entire time. The next head-to-head battle is Replayability. Both albums at least showed a little mercy and restraint by being short. I do appreciate that. But I have to give the edge to Imagine Dragons here because Camila's record is just so painful and excruciating at times, not because it's always the worst thing ever, but because it consistently makes decisions, whether that be sonically, songwriting, or just the overall production, collaborators on the track. It keeps making choices that bring it back down. Not that Imagine Dragons don't do that. Oh my god, they indulge themselves more than a fat man at a Golden Corral buffet. But let's be honest with ourselves. It's brief enough, it's background noise, you can often tune it out, and I find it's a little bit easier to ignore than the problems with Camila. Next up is the Battle of Aesthetics. Dan Reynolds has hammered home the point that the album cover is a sunrise and a sunset. Every sunrise is contrasted by the sunset. What's on the other side of the coin? Oh, there's brightness in the music, but there's darkness in the lyrics. We've never heard this before. That has always grinded my gears, not just with them, but the problem at large, when an artist just hams it up like there's so much here to explore when you're just giving us a spoonful of sugar. If you like that sort of contrast and you really are too scared to wade into the deep end, then I could see this being a gateway drug. And certainly, it's not as messy as whatever the hell Camila was thinking. Camila's album cover just screams try hard, like I really am trying to lure you in. There's something so sexy here. Come on and find out what it is. I'm on this adventure with all of my crazy friends, when in reality, other than Lil Nas X, they add nothing to the entirety of the product. As much as I don't think her previous album, Familia, was very good at all, I can at least say it felt more authentic than this. I just think for the fact that it's a little bit more subtle and low-key, I'm gonna have to give this round to Imagine Dragons. Category 5, the full package. When looking at both of these as products rather than artistic compositions, it's a little bit easier for me to weigh it out on the balance beam scale, and I think overall, I just ever so slightly have a little bit more patience for LOOM by Imagine Dragons, thus declaring it the winner of who is slightly better in the battle of two dog shit albums. I definitely don't see myself coming back to either of these albums at all, to the point where I really can't even pick like favorite songs. It's just ones that annoy me slightly less. I just thought it would be fun to do this little head-to-head pop gone wrong battle to see which album I enjoyed less. Don't take me too seriously though. If you enjoy either of these artists or these albums, more power to you. Thank you for watching my reviews of these two albums. Please hit that like button, it helps me out a ton, and subscribe if you haven't already. Keep the watch party going, check out a couple of related videos on screen, and I'll see you soon on ARTV.